All right, welcome to How to Ace IELTS Speaking for Dummies. My name is Mike Kasem. Let's get down to it. Now, by now, you would have already prepared your speaking practice for IELTS examination, right? The most common mistake that many candidates do is that they do not think what goes through the mind of an IELTS examiner. So it's important that you listen to this presentation very carefully because it makes a difference as to whether you can get a perfect 9 or you probably get a perfect 5. First, don't be stupid. The examiner is looking for a few things. What are the examiners looking for, right? Let me tell you what they're looking for. First, fluency and coherence, all right? I'm going to touch on these 4 factors very briefly and perhaps make a video in more detail if you like. The second thing is lexical resource. Lexical resource refers to the range of vocabulary, how much words do you use and how precise they are. Now, grammatical range and accuracy, here it refers to the range of grammatical structures that you actually use. By that, I mean, are you using complex structures, okay? Good candidates in speaking uses complex structures. Of course, they mix it up with simple structures, right? And we need to have a clear understanding about what we mean by this, right? That's perhaps in another video. The next, but not the least, of course, is pronunciation. How do you pronounce certain words? Are you clear in your pronunciation? And we can take a deeper look at this, okay? So let's move on to the next slide. What the hell is fluency and coherence? I think that's a pretty common question, right? But most people would know by now. Fluency refers to the speech rate. In other words, do you speak very fast, too fast, or do you speak rather slow, too slowly? So there is a difference, all right? You got to be speaking at a normal pace, at a comfortable pace, right? We can take a look at this in greater detail. But for now, let's move on to speech production. Of course, here speech production refers to your ability to develop on the topic that the examiner has just asked you, right? Are you able to expand on it, say more things about it, right? So of course, speech production also has to do with hesitation. Do you hesitate a lot, right? So candidates who hesitate a lot, in other words, candidates who stop. There are long pauses. Now, there is a difference between good hesitation and bad hesitation. You need to know the difference, all right? The next thing would be cohesive devices. As you're talking, right, do you use cohesive devices? What are cohesive devices? Well, cohesive devices will include the basic ones like you structure what you want to say first, second, lastly, right? These are cohesive devices, some basic ones, as you would know. Now, it's also important that you be aware that the choices of words that you are using when you're talking actually is relevant. They are situationally appropriate context. In other words, use the right words, okay, for the right situation that the examiner is asking you to talk about. So the next category that the examiner is listening for is your lexical resources. What do I mean by lexical resources? Okay, it's important to note, right? If you want to get a really high score for IELTS, right, you do need at the high bands idiomatic language. This includes phrasal verbs. What are phrasal verbs, right? Phrasal verbs would be words like, you know, they consist of a preposition, word, and a verb, right? So you have cut off, for example. Cut is a verb, off is a preposition, right? Words like break up. Words like took off, right? Phrasal verbs and so many others are a good, gives a good idea to the examiner that you are actually a high band speaker of the language, all right? Of course, there are other things like idiomatic language, okay, that will be much more greater detail in perhaps another session if you like. Now, what kinds of idiomatic languages, words that is actually used by native speakers, right? So by and far and large, when we look at lexical resource, we are really looking at your range of vocabulary, your range of words, your word database, right? Sustained use of accurate language in all contexts. So the examiner is going to ask you lots of questions, right? Tell me about yourself, right? In the opening frame 1, in frame 2, where you have the long turn to speak, the examiner will be giving you a topic and asking you to talk for 1 minute and observe, right, how you respond to a specific long topic of your own, right? Another important thing is precise use of the words, right? This can be very detailed. Like for example, the word walk has many different types of words for the word walk, right? How did he walk? Did he lumber? Would suggest he's fat. Did he waddle? Would suggest he's fat. He's waddling like a penguin. So choices of words, right? Just for the word walk, did he flitted, right? Did he staggered? Perhaps he was drunk. So your choice of words, the precision of that word is important for a high band if you want to score a top score in IELTS speaking. So let's go on to the next session. Now, of course, will be the grammar. This is pretty obvious, right? Grammatical range. I want to talk about grammatical range. When I say range, I mean wide range of structures. By wide range of structures, I'm referring to your ability to use complex structures. Okay, what do you mean by complex structures? Complex structures here refers to your ability to use subordinate clauses. So what kind of subordinate clauses would that be? That would be things like since, words like although, right? Whereas. Now, apart from just simply using simple structures, right? I like coffee rather than tea. Why? You should add on some, what I call, very importantly, complex structures. You need to show by the choices of your speech, your words, your sentences, that you have a range of moving across these complex structures to simple sentences, right? And of course, the majority of your sentences are error-free. You don't need to be perfect, but you should not have systematic error, right? Systematic error would be things like, I like to go to the cinema someday after holiday. I like going for food after yesterday morning session. I kind of think that the food is the best way forward. Now, if you have sentences that are missing with articles, do you have sentences which are missing with the? They're missing words, right? Important parts of speech are missing. And this goes on quite consistently. Then it's very difficult for you to get a band 8, right? So perhaps we'll talk more about this. And of course, you have complex structures, which I mentioned earlier on. Now, let's get on to the next slide. And we come to pronunciation. What happens in pronunciation? Now, in pronunciation, the examiner is listening to your ability to chunk, right? So when a sentence is very long, you need to chop it up into phrases, right? For example, like the word, like the sentence, there are a lot of people who believe that summer is better than winter. Now, for this sentence, right, you got to chunk. It's a quite a long sentence. You got to chunk it. There are a lot of. So you would read a lot of as one word. So this is called chunking, right? There are a lot of people who believe that. You would perhaps say who believe that this will be read as one phrase, right? This will be read as one phrase. summer is better than winter. So learn to chunk your sentences. More of that perhaps in a future lesson. The next thing to look at is appropriate rhythm. When you are speaking, is your rhythm appropriate? In other words, when you chunk your sentences, right? When you know when to start, when to pause. When there's a comma, you pause at a comma. When you know how to chunk, naturally your rhythm will become suitable, right? The other thing is about stresses. Stresses is a very deep consideration as well. In fact, it's very important because it creates excitement, right? Which words are you stressing? Summer is better. Now, if you stress the word better, right? I'm talking about stressing words within sentences. I'm not talking about stressing within the word itself. So better. If you want to stress on better, it creates a greater clarity in your examiner ability to process what you are saying, all right? So appropriate stresses, knowing when to stress is very important. So that in itself is another deep session to look at. Now, of course, if you have an accent, right? Say you come from a different part of the world, right? You have a different accent, right? There are many kinds of accents of English, right? Your accent should have very little effect on the examiner's ability to understand what you're saying. So let's get on to the next one. So which band do you think you are, right? In IELTS, there are band 1 for speaking, right? If you open your mouth, you will get band 1. That's the lowest, right? Where you want to be is here, which is band 9, right? This is a high score, band 9, where hardly any hesitation. And if there were hesitation, most of the time, it is to look for content and not for grammar, right? So let's have a short breakdown here. 8 and 9, these are the high bands, right? 7, 6, this is the second category of bands, okay? Many people who studied really hard would get a band 6 or a band 7, right? If there's less error. Now, if you're a band 5, that means there's some problems with your grammar. You have some serious problems with grammar. Your fluency is very slow. Now, if you hardly say anything, if you black out, if you have nothing to say, you're likely to be in band 4. Is how to move from band 5 to this second band, and how to move from this band to the next band. All right, that's the brief synopsis for you on how to ace IELTS for dummies. If you want more further information and detail and strategies, say something in the comments and I'll get back to you.